I thought I'd make a little video here. Haven't made an arcade video in a while. One of the things I wanted to do when I set up my desk with this 2-monitor setup was see if I can get a Naomi running on this second monitor so that maybe I could put one somewhere in here and play Naomi games. So my original plan was to get GBS 8200 and mod it for the GBS 8200 or GBS-C GBS control, where you take this and you add other parts to it, making this converter board far better than it is as a standalone unit for what it was intended for. Then I thought, well, okay, hang on. Maybe I don't need that. So what I did here is tested the theory that I don't need that, which I actually knew was already true because I had been running Lupin the Shooting in an arcade cabinet to a VGA television. So I actually knew that it would work. I just didn't know if the lag doing it this way would be more than the lag using the GBS control method. And I still don't know. I don't have any idea what the lag is like doing it the way I am. Now, here is the way I am doing it, okay? There is the Sega Naomi. There is NetDIMM. I've got a zero security chip in there. Compact flash. USB is going from the Naomi over here to a JVS I/O board as input down there. This is the board I was using when I was messing around with gun games. You notice it doesn't have a JAMA edge connector. This one had wires that I wired up to a gun sense board. This right here, this CN7 connector needs 5 volts and ground to power this I/O board. I am pulling that from this power supply. This power supply came from House of the Dead 2. So it is a Naomi Sun power supply. Actually, it's not. It's JQA. Thought it was Sun. Oh, it is. Sun Electronics Industry Company Limited, yeah. So this is just a different format of a Sun power supply. I believe the actual Sun power supply in here is the same as the smaller box, I believe. I know I opened this up and cleaned it out before. I don't think I did a cap kit on it. I bought a bunch of House of the Dead 2 guts, and this came with it. So this wiring loom that came with it was hacked for US cabinets. Hacked or factory modified, I don't know. But you would expect a Japanese cabinet would have these Japanese connectors, terminating more Japanese connectors that went throughout the cabinet. However, this has the Japanese connectors up here. I can see various cut wires on this connector back there, and then the wiring goes to Molex connectors to different places, and 2 of them end up at the Naomi. The compact flash is powered by these pins on the Naomi, which also supply ground and 5 volts. So yeah, this. And then there's the AC cord that comes off the House of the Dead 2 that goes down there and plugs in. There's VGA coming off of the Naomi and going into a VGA to HDMI box. And this is an $80 VGA to HDMI converter because I got a cheap one, like a $15 one, and it didn't work on the TV that I was trying it on. So I bought this expensive one thinking, well, if it works, I'll know it works and I'll take it back. But it worked and I never took it back. So this is a stupid $80 converter box, and I have no idea of the lag that this may or may not be producing. It's powered by a wall plug down there. Has the VGA in, has an input for sound, but the sound is not going through there because my monitor doesn't have speakers. So I've got left and right RCA jacks that go into the back of this speaker, into a 3.5 inch or 3.5 mil, whatever they call it, just a standard stereo jack. And this is a Bluetooth wireless battery-powered speaker thing that I got as an anniversary gift from a place I used to work. So I think that covers everything in here. It's hugely disgusting and horrible mess. This wire loom, I guess I didn't go over. This power supply, like I said, has a bunch of Molex connectors on it. And the only terminated ends here go to the Naomi. It doesn't have a pin that goes to CN7 on that I/O board. So I remembered that when I was messing with the gun games, I had made my own wiring loom for the gun games, which this is. But the only thing I'm using off of this loom is what plugs into one of the Molex connectors from this power supply and goes to CN7. So this big batch of wires can be totally eliminated by me simply wiring up to one of the other connectors that come off the power supply. To get the voltage. But now I look at it, you know what? I don't think there is another one. I think this is the only connector from this power supply that doesn't have something plugged into it going to the Naomi. So yeah, it looks like the Japanese connectors were all cut, and then US arcade type Molex connectors were then joined to take it to the Naomi for some bizarre reason. So I could get rid of this mess of wires by redoing this connector and just pulling one of the yellow and white wires off of this connector. In the Japan wired cabinets, typically yellow is 5 volts, red is 12 volts, white is ground. So it gets a bit confusing here because you can see over there I've got red and white coming off the Naomi going to power the compact flash. That's 5 volts, but I used US typical red for 5 volts, and then I used white for ground. So it's kind of a hodgepodge of wire colors because a lot of my Japanese wiring is from a spare harness I got years ago off eBay that was pulled from, I think it was a driving game, Japanese driving game. And I've been living off those wires and connectors for years. Just anytime I need wire, I just see if I can find one long enough from that set and reuse it because it's fairly nice wire, it's flexible, and a lot of it had the Japanese connectors on the end of it, so I didn't have to save me buying some Japanese connectors. Anyway, making a short story long, this is just a video showing that, yeah, I've got it running. I don't have any controls hooked up at the moment. The JVSIO handles analog and digital controls. Typically the digital controls, which are your buttons, up, down, right, left, buttons 1, 2, 3, 4. Typically those come from the large controller, and the analog, like guns, positioning, come from the smaller connector. And this is going by memory because I haven't messed with the gun games in quite a while. You can look at my past arcade videos and see when I was messing with that. One thing I am really happy about, and I don't quite understand what was going on, the last time that I used this setup, was messing with the gun cabinet, and I was playing Lupin the Third, The Shooting, and it was running slow. And when I say running slow, I mean the attract mode. And when you started the game and played the game, it was running like, I don't know, 2/3 the speed it was supposed to. It was just obviously running slow. It wasn't even close. It's not something where you're like, is that running slow or not? It was definitely running too slow. So I have no idea what that was. I thought maybe it was bad RAM or something, and this is the board that I was running it on, so I just checked it. And I checked the memory and it all passed. I checked this NetDIMM and it passed all its tests. I tried to run Lupin on this setup, but it just kept going back to the test menu, and I think that might be because I don't have the gun board hooked up to this right now. I do have one spare gun board, but I believe it's untested. I'm calling it untested because I can't remember if I tested it or not anyway. So I think that's why. It does load into the game, and I can get as far as it loads to the test menu, and then from the test menu I can go to the Lupin game test menu, and I can go through those options there. But when I exit, instead of starting the game, it throws me back to the Naomi test menu. So yeah, I'm not sure what was going on, but I'm really happy that this Naomi is not messed up, because it seems to be running just fine right now. This is obviously not slow and messed up like Lupin was the last time I ran it. So I don't know what kind of weird thing that was. I did lower my voltage. My 5 volt was a little high, my 3.3 was a little low, so I adjusted those. But yeah, it's back to what I was planning. My original plan was make a consoleized Naomi, so I could just have it like behind my desk or something, tucked back in that corner. So that when I wanted to play it, I could just kind of slide it out a bit, turn it on, or put it up here, turn it on, and you know, it'd be a nice consoleized, self-contained unit. But looking at consoleizing a Naomi, it takes a lot of work. The space inside the unit is not that much, and so I kind of disregarded that. I'm not gonna do that, but I definitely don't want this. Although this is playable, it's a giant mess, and if I want to use my computer for anything else, I really don't want to have this thing sitting here. So one other thing that I've done is I have built the Raspberry Pi with a screen on it and loaded the WiPi setup. So this has every game from the Naomi 1, Atomus Wave, Naomi 2, Chihiro, and Triforce on the SD card. Not that any of those do anything for me other than Naomi 1, since this is a Naomi 1 unit. But the cool thing about this is it's based off of the Raspberry Pi 3B Plus with Wi-Fi. So all I do is you connect the network cable to the NetDIMM network cable input, set the NetDIMM to a certain IP address. I think it's 10.10.10.03. And then you can either, at this point right now with this case, you can either select games on the screen, up, down, enter to choose a game, or what I'm probably going to do is take that screen off to make this smaller, because it also does Wi-Fi. So there's an app that runs on your phone that brings up all the games that are on the card, because your phone is connecting to the Wi-Fi hotspot that the Raspberry Pi puts out, and you can select the game from your phone and launch it. And not only does it launch the game and load it from the SD card in this box over the network cable to your NetDIMM, I believe that it also bypasses the memory check, so it will be faster because when you just use a compact flash unit, first it loads the game. Well, actually, I think first it might check the memory, and then I never pay attention. It checks memory, it loads the games, and then it checks memory again. There's like 3 steps before the game starts, and I believe with this box it will eliminate at least one of those checks. So this thing here will take the place of the compact flash unit. It still needs power. It still needs 5 volts, just like the compact flash adapter does. But I'll be able to select games from my phone and won't have to use compact flash cards in and out. I am planning on replacing this with a PC power supply. So I've got a couple extra of the connectors that go into the Naomi, and I've got in the mail from eBay a 24-pin ATX power connector that then goes to, I think it's Dell on the other end, which is proprietary. But all I care about is the 24-pin that will plug into the power supply, and then I'll cut the wires and crimp the Naomi's connectors onto the end of the wires, and then instead of having this box that's this big, it will be a modern PC power supply, which will be a lot more quiet. I am a bit nervous because the actual power supply here, you get to adjust the 3.3 volt and 5 volt voltages, and with a PC power supply you can't. So I'm a little nervous about that because the Naomi tends to be picky about voltages, but plenty of people have done that, so I think it should be fine. So that will reduce the footprint from this to a standard PC power supply. So I don't know if I'll keep this board. This board was from when I had a Blast City arcade cabinet, and I just kept the Naomi mounted to it. I've got 3 Naomis at this point and only 1 set of feet. So this is bolted to the piece of wood. So I think what I'm going to do is have the piece of wood, or maybe even a different piece of wood, where I can bolt the Naomi PC power supply, the WiPi, the VGA to HDMI adapter, so everything, and the JBS I/O. So hopefully everything will be contained on one board. And then again, like I said, maybe I'll just keep that board somewhere else and then take it out and put it, in front of this cabinet or back there. And then I'm going to have to come out with some kind of controls to wire to it, of course, to actually play games. And hopefully the lag is acceptable or non-existent. So that's my current plan. This is kind of the first step. First step was actually starting work on modifying the GBS 8200 into a GBS-C, GBS control. But I think at this point I'm not going to do that because, like I said, this actually runs on this LCD just fine without it, and that's kind of what I was going to use it for. I thought I might have to upscale the Naomi's 480p signal before it would work on the monitor, but it works on this monitor. I think it looks great. I haven't seen any tearing. I believe this is a FreeSync monitor. I have to double check. I know my other larger one is. I believe this one is as well. But yeah, first step, I guess, checking that the Naomi works, the NetDIMM works, and this power supply works. So at least I'm starting with known working parts. This Naomi, I think I might have made a video on it before. Also, this Naomi motherboard actually came from a metal case and was running House of the Dead 2. And I have the House of the Dead 2 cart that I put into the cart shell from a Derby's Club cart that I got really cheap on eBay years ago. And that was an attempt to get away from the huge metal cased Naomi. The early generations came in metal cases. And I've also, a friend of mine in the arcade hobby helped me wire up 2 EEPROMs with a switch. So this has got the latest Japanese EEPROM BIOS and the specific House of the Dead 2 BIOS that you can change back and forth by flipping the switch. At the time, House of the Dead 2 did not run on compact flash. It only ran off the original cartridge because it used a very odd BIOS. That's part of the reason anyway. And now evidently they have fixed that. So now over the WiPi I should be able to even load House of the Dead 2, although I don't have my guns anymore. I sold that to another friend. But that kind of makes having the House of the Dead 2 original cart kind of a not necessary, so I may end up selling that. But yeah, here we go. So test number 1, yes, Naomi works on this monitor, but it is a huge, gigantic, ugly mess. That speaker is... I didn't even think about what I was going to do for audio, to be honest. Like I said, the converter box I have takes audio in and will send it through the HDMI, but the monitor here doesn't have speakers. So I grabbed this, which my wife sometimes uses. But I do have one, back when the movie Tron Legacy came out, Monster was selling... speakers that are kind of, you could plug an iPhone, I believe that was my iPhone 4, you could plug an iPhone into it, and lights around the disc would like react to the music. And I got it because after the movie came out and was out for a while, they went on sale, and they're actually really nice sounding units. So if I get the whole Naomi setup small enough to, you know, be shoved back there or something, I'm thinking I might just also, part 2 of that would be, so part 1 would be the Naomi, and then part 2 would be in that corner, that back corner of my desk. I would put either this speaker or that other speaker, so I had a speaker. Of course, I'm not going to get much stereo, if any, stereo separation from it, but that's not a huge deal. And then number 3 is controls. Figuring out what to do about that. I do have some controls that I made up for another project I'm working on. These are, I made 2 of these, a red and blue and a blue and red. These are 3D printed cases with parts made from eBay, the Chinese joystick buttons, USB encoder that goes out to USB. So I can't just natively use this with the Naomi because it's USB output, and even though Naomi uses a USB cable, that it's not USB protocol, it's just a USB cable they use to connect the Naomi to the I/O board. So yeah, I'll either have to get something like this, make something again like this, that just has the plain wires going out that I can hook to a connector that connects to the wires coming out of the JBS I/O, or buy some kind of a fight stick and rewire it to work with the JBS I/O for controls. But this video is getting way too long, and now I'm just starting to ramble, so I just wanted to make a video because I haven't made an arcade one in a while, showing a side project, because I don't have enough projects going on, but a side project that I want to work on and actually beginning to get some progress, at least being able to say, hey, my hardware still seems to work okay, and it works with my monitor and my speaker. So there we go. I'll try and make another video when I have more progress. Not sure when that'll be.